good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you're calling from. This is Kristina Mand-Lakhiani. I'm co-founder of Mindvalley, and I have my honest conversation tonight with a very interesting guest. Today, I'm interviewing the person whom I have referred to exactly because of that topic. So Kamal is an author of several books, but most famously, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And also you're an entrepreneur. I understand that you have started quite a few, or co-founded quite a few tech companies, and you're a VC in Silicon Valley, and you have had a very interesting experience through your life. Kamal Ravikant is my guest, as you can guess. Kamal, welcome, and hi.
Wow, thanks for having me. I'm looking at all these people popping in from all over. That's amazing. And I didn't know this was going to be live and everyone's going to be here, so it should be fun. Hi from Ireland. Someone sent a little heart.
Where are you from right now?
I'm in Manhattan Beach, California, which is this lovely beach town a little south of LA. I have a house here, like a block from the beach, just kind of like a pretty good life.
Kamal, so obviously the question, how, and I know the story, of course, but I would like you to tell that story. How did you come to that topic at all? Because you are in such hard world, business, entrepreneurship, and VC, and love for yourself seems like one of those topics which we don't think about while we are in the rut, busy and trying to achieve things. So how did you come to that?
It's a good question, because I'm not the love of yourself guy. I never have been. It wasn't me. I was in the US Army. I built companies, built a VC firm, kind of like hard charging, do stuff in your life kind of guy. And literally I had to hit a bottom to, it's kind of interesting how a lot of us have to hit a bottom to really come to terms with their real selves, rather than just the selves that we project to the world and what we, just like living for the world. And I had experience in 2011, 2012, just seems so far long ago now, where a company I'd built and I self-funded for years, was doing really well, and it blew up and I lost everything, and I was really sick, and everything just fell apart, I'd done well, and then all of a sudden I was living off credit cards, and it was just like everything fell apart, and I was in a really bad place. And I was just like locked up in my apartment, just in a really bad place. I like to say, like, if I was depressed, that would have been a good day. It was more like, I just want to be done with this life. I don't want to be here. I can't take this anymore. There was a lot of pressure on me, and because you lost people's money and all this kind of stuff. And I remember one night just getting up saying, I can't live like this anymore. I just can't. I can't stand this, this inside. I can't stand it. And so and I was quite sick at the time, and I basically kind of like staggered over to my desk, and I have a little journal that I keep notes in. I've been a writer for long before I wrote this book, and I wrote down this vow, and I don't know where it came from. It was just like a very pure, sincere, all-in vow, and it was the vow that I talked about in the book about loving yourself. And it was like, I remember looking at the vow and I sat back and was like, what the hell did I just do? I was not expecting to write that. I was going to write like a little note to myself, or maybe something inspirational to myself. And this vow came out. And I'm a big believer in the power of commitment to the self. When you commit to the self, you have no choice but to do it. That's literally I think the secret to accomplishing and being great in life. Make commitments to yourself and keep them. And a vow is a full-on commitment. A vow is the ultimate. Vow is a sacred act. I mean, they say marriage vow, that's a sacred act, right? Now, a vow to the self, even more sacred. It's just between you and whatever you believe. And there's nothing more sacred than that. And so I just made a vow, and then I had to keep it. So the next thing was, how do I do it? Honestly, I have no idea. I didn't go read books. Funny enough, the guy who wrote the book on it, I didn't go read books on it. I was just sitting there, just started doing, I was like, well, what can I do? And so I had to do this. So I started just trying things in my head, on my inside. And I've studied enough neuroscience and stuff to know that when, neurons that fire together. So I just started running things in my head, and what worked, I went further down that path. What didn't, I threw it away. I really didn't care, because I was literally in survival mode, and I needed to just get better. And I'd made this vow. So, and I was in a desperate place, and it was literally just doing it, life depends on it. That's where I was, honestly. And I started doing this, and I noticed within a couple of days, I started feeling better without even trying. And I just, whatever made me feel better. Sorry, go ahead.
So sorry for interrupting. So your vow was actually to love yourself, or was there anything else there?
No, it was like, I'm trying to remember what the vow was. Like, it was something like, this day I want to love myself fully, truly, deeply, in all my actions, all my thoughts, all my words. And I don't know where it came from. It came from inside. And it was just that. It wasn't like to like myself, to make myself better or anything. It went beyond all of that. And
So
so
you must have come then from the place of actually not liking what you were at that moment.
very much so. Very much so.
How did you get there?
I think it was just failure and losing everything, and the pressure I put on myself because of it, honestly. I think most of the worst stuff we put on ourselves, others don't. I think often we're harsh on ourselves than others ever will be. And I was being very harsh on myself, and I kind of fell apart, in all honesty. I was burnt out, and it's like when your ego, your sense of self, is tied into your external expression, who you're being to the world, in the sense that I am this successful entrepreneur, I am this, and that's your entire basically sense of self. And when you lose that, it all falls apart. Like you realize you were on a castle made of sand, so to speak. And but it's really, really interesting. I've been studying this stuff now on my own out of curiosity, not loving yourself, but more like mystical teachings and stuff from different cultures. And you find that most people are drawn to this and have the transformations when they hit some sort of bottom. It's like almost as human beings, we're too thick-headed, to listen to life, to listen to real things, which is one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I was like, look, don't have to end up in a place where I was to do this. Like imagine if your life is okay, how it's going to be, or how your inside's going to be if you do this. Because one thing that came out was, like within a month, not only my inside had changed, like my inside had naturally changed. I was in a completely different place, like opposite, but my life started to change around me. It was like I started to feel like, the best way to put it is like life started to ripple around me, like things just started to work. And I wasn't doing anything except working on my inside. I was like, oh my God, I think I just like discovered the secret to life in some ways. I don't write much about that, but because I want people to experience it on their own, because I'm no expert in it, but that is a result I noticed.
So coming from that, then the question is, did you do your homework at that time and do the work and then moved on? Because I understand that you're a busy person and you have a full life. How much of that experience or that working on loving yourself is part of your life right now? Does it come naturally because you've done some homework and now you don't need to actually put an effort into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I can get quite lazy in things. It's like, so it's actually the expanded version of Love Yourself that came out in 2020. There's one of the things I really go deep into is like, don't coast. I've noticed when I coast, my mind starts to fall back into old patterns. Like old patterns don't go away, they're wired in. It's just you're wiring in new patterns. And I noticed my life starts to go sideways as well. And and then each time I was like, oh, damn it, you know better. So I jump into it again. But now it's like, honestly, you're catching me at a point where it's very just part of my day, where like earlier I got up, I did the meditation I talk about, like I'll walk around running the mental loop and everything in myself, feeling the light. It just starts to become more, as long as you keep it up, it's like it's harder to get into shape if you're completely out of shape. But once you get in shape, it takes less to maintain it if you're just your maintenance mode. And that's beautiful. Same thing with the mind, except it happens much faster. So it's actually really inspiring. If you just work hard on your mind, you'll know before you know it, you'll be like, you'll skyrocket. And then you don't have to do it as hard because you put in the grooves, like your mind is. And honestly, I use the word mind because of the neuroscience, but it's more, I think, heart. It's really all of the sense of you feeling from the heart. You feel it like that. Like that's the only way I can describe it. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does make. In fact, it's funny. I was watching Avengers. I think so, with kids. No, not Avengers. I'm so bad with superhero movies. It was Guardians of the Galaxy, and there was this
Oh, it's a
line.
great movie. I love that movie.
When Yondu says, the arrow moves not with my mind but with my heart. So I totally get it. I just heard this line like half an hour ago. So thank you for
oh my God, I missed that line. I can't believe that I missed that. It's like everyone, all great literature, all great movies, they always go back to the same thing. There's a reason we are drawn to it, because we can sense the truth. Now, the work is not getting lost in the day-to-day, not getting lost in the monkey that runs around inside, but actually kind of like writing it, like guiding it with the heart. If you start doing that, like life just changes. I swear to God, like every time I do this, it's just like things just get better. Like, and you get better on the inside first, then life gets better. That's how it works, by the way.
Mm. That's absolutely true. But I want to get back. I want to get back a little bit into everyday life with my question. I've noticed that a lot of super successful people, especially people who are in business setting, in this more I don't know how to call it, but in a more pragmatic maybe life, they tend to be a little critical about the idea of loving yourself. They have this fear that if I love myself, I'm not going to push myself. And a lot of high achievers and people who are particularly in business, because business is so driven by numbers and it's so easy to get into that, they tend to say like, no, but you can't love yourself too much. Some level of self-criticism is good, or you have to set yourself a high bar. So how do since I know you're also part of that world, you're actually somewhere in both worlds. How do you keep loving yourself and pushing yourself at the same time?
You ask really good questions. That's a really good one, and very practical. Look, here's the thing: loving yourself, because like I think one of the reasons why my book does so well is like I'm not some guy who's like, like that's all I do. Like I'm a guy who's done stuff and he just came up with this as a practical. The book is very practical, step-by-step manual, basically how to do it. So it's what I've learned is it's not being a Pollyanna. It's not taking bubble baths all day. I mean, bubble baths are great, but that's not what it is. It's an inner thing. And when you do it, you make better decisions. You don't make them out of fear. So often I look back and the worst decisions I made in business were out of fear or were out of like neediness and all that. It takes that away. I'm much better in business, honestly, because I mean, if you love yourself, you'll walk away from anything that doesn't feel right. You won't have the neediness because you trust yourself. Like this is better for you. And so honestly, I do much better in business now than I ever have because of that. It's not Pollyanna. It's not like sitting there and just like doing I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, gosh darn it, people like me. It's not that, although I joked about that, but it's not that. It's a deeper thing. It's a feeling, it's a sense of self that you're wiring into yourself, where you take care of yourself. So you will make better decisions. Honestly, you'd be amazed the level of entrepreneurs and CEOs, like big names that reach out to me that have read my books, like really stupidly successful people, like on a level that's just crazy. And they're all like, this book really helped me. This book saved me. Like it's insane how many high achievers actually reach out and say that. So we are, as high achievers, naturally harder on ourselves. And when you do less of that, you realize you didn't need that to be a high achiever. It may have gotten you this far, but it's not going to get you the next step.
The question I'm also wondering about is because you mentioned that what brought you to that rock bottom was failures, and I'm sure you fail now as well. So how do you take failure from the point of view of loving yourself, or how do you I don't know, deal with that or process it?
Damn, every question is so good. I like questions that make me think, honestly. Yeah, I do. I have, and I'm actually quite open about it in my books. I think sometimes, more often than not, I let it affect me deeper if I'm not doing the practice. When I start doing the practice, it just makes me better. But honestly, I'm thinking. I think it just like, look, the life is a series of making decisions, and then the consequences from those decisions, and then more decision consequences of the decision. If someone leads to failure, let's say like a relationship or whatever, I mean, it's gonna hurt. Human. You're not just gonna sit there, I love myself, so I'm not gonna hurt about it. We're heart-driven creatures. We're gonna feel. But then you but you still carry yourself through it and to the other side. And it's better to do that with love than it is to do with pain or whatever. Like I have this exercise that I do that I wrote about extensively in the new edition about how do I forgive myself, and how you really, before you start this process of loving yourself, you need to forgive yourself for everything, because that this way you let go of the garbage. You can let, if you're moving on to the future, it's better not to dragging the weight for the past behind. That is something I do as well. It's become more natural, especially for someone like myself who was always very hard on himself, as you mentioned about like go get high achievers. That's been really good. And that's very important. And like loving ourselves is also forgiving ourselves. Loving ourselves is also not just like, it's about being honest about our failures, being honest with others about our failures, saying, apologizing when it's our fault, and just stepping up, that's what it's about. And actually you come out to it better. Like I look back at my failures and I've actually come out to them better than I was before I went in. I'm not saying I want any more, but but that is part of life, I mean, I don't think every decision we make is going to have the consequences we wish for, but then you make further decisions, and part of that is just being better. Who's going to come through this and going to be a better version of me on the other side? That is a gift to yourself. If you're going through a crappy experience anyway, quote unquote failure, make sure that as you go through it, and there is another side, when you end up on the other side, you're better. And that's going to feel so damn good. And no one can take that away from you, because that was you. And that sense of self that you carry because of that is really special.
Kamal, so you just mentioned forgiving yourself, and I know that this is probably the hardest thing to do. Do you have any tips on how to forgive yourself for the things, let's say for the things where you know that you didn't behave well, or you didn't do well, or you were actually not your best self? Not even your best self, where you actually were a bad guy.
I mean, you were human, basically. Because we all fail, like in our own, and that's part of being human. And I don't think you can go to Wikipedia, look up the word perfect. You're not going to see a photo of a human being. It's just not the nature of us, right? I mean, at least the human cells. There's something that I did years ago that I found really transformative, and I just come up with this stuff. I try this stuff, like I'm always trying stuff on my inside. I think that's something that makes me me. And years ago, I had a girlfriend at the time who was really having a hard time letting go of the guilt she carried from a divorce she'd had. And, it had been years, but she was really carrying that guilt. So I was living in Northern California. I drove her out. We went to this place called Pescadero. It's this beautiful lighthouse along the ocean. And we walked there, and I said, like, look, here's a piece of paper. Now I want you to take this paper and write down everything you hold against yourself. Everything. And she kind of looked at me really weirdly. I'm like, just do it. Like everything, just let it out. Just let it write again and again and again, and then read it to yourself until you literally vomit it out about the guilt you carry. And so she did that. I said, okay, now we're going to take that guilt and everything you threw out and throw in the ocean. And we wrapped it in a paper and threw in the ocean. So I've done that exercise myself, and you can either burn it, you can do whatever, but it's like there's something that releases. It's like you vomiting it out. But then there's a next step. So you've created this space. The next step is you got to fill it with something that's going to actually create light. In other words, the gunk just flows back in, which is where, I show like, look, go make your vow, make your commitment to yourself. Don't just stop there, because you create an open space, and a vacuum will fill things in, right? So you create a vacuum in yourself, now fill it with the light. Make the vow to full on love yourself, and then do it step by step by step. So now you create that space, now you let light in, and now you're moving forward with it. It's transformative. Like that is the secret, by the way. At least that's the one I figured out for myself.
I actually love this. I love the idea of actually creating a vow at the end, because I've done forgiveness exercises, and there are so many people who actually teach different forms of forgiveness. But this is actually the first time I heard that idea. I like it. So you just mentioned that you actually come up with your exercise and you try them, and then you'll keep what works. And I know I've done your exercise, the one that you described in your book, Love Yourself, like your life depends on you. Or maybe you described it in an interview division, but some exercise I've done with you. Did you ever turn for help to professionals when you were in your low state like 10 years ago?
Another great question. I'm too thick-headed.
Me
I
too.
just have to figure it out on my own, which is a strength and a weakness as well. You
Yeah.
know, um, when I was in college, I went to therapy for a couple of years, and it was the best thing I ever did. One of the best things I ever did, because in college I got to discover myself, like the stuff I was carrying from childhood, I had to come to terms with, and really helped me there. But like, I think once I became, especially like the kind of mindset that led me to be an entrepreneur. Your job as an entrepreneur is just to figure things out and solve problems every day. All you're doing is, it's just a series of solving problems and moving. Hopefully that you're moving forward. So I had the same, that mindset just got wired into me, right? And you get it. And so I didn't. Maybe I should have, but then the book would never existed. So who knows? You know. Honestly, I don't recommend my path. My path is more thick-headed.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thing. I'm asking that because I'm also probably thick-headed.
I think a lot of us who are doers are, you don't get that way if you're not.
Well, Brené Brown, she's not a psychologist, but she's a sociologist, I think, and a
Hmm.
researcher. But she's the one who I heard it from her first, that people who are into this kind of thing, they don't want help from therapists because their bullshit radar is so high, then
My
they see
God,
through what's going on, and
you're
but
so
maybe
right.
that's our excuse, Maybe we're wrong. So I don't
Mm.
know.
I mean, I'd be open to it, but it's like, it's interesting when you work your own stuff out yourself. There's
Yeah.
this empowerment that comes from it, but also the weakness is it might take longer, or one thing I tell people is like, look, I'm not a therapist. I don't play one on TV. Please don't. This is the book written from just a man who does stuff, who figures something out for himself, who also for a decade before he wrote this book, had studied to be a literary fiction writer. So he knows how to write, how to take his ideas and concisely explain them in a way that just crosses boundaries. But like, in the end, use this book for yourself. Make it your own practice and apply it any way do therapy, whatever. Apply it any way you want to your life. My path is just my path, and I'm sharing it. But make it your own. I love getting emails from people who like I did this and then I made change a little bit. This is what I did, and it's amazing. And I give examples of how I've used this for like my childhood stuff or other things. So like people have an idea what to do, but now make it your own. And I get emails from a lot of therapists actually saying they're using it with their clients, which is amazing.
You made some great exercises. I agree to that. But to people who are listening to us and who will listen to us actually in recording later, I have to say that especially nowadays, this past year has been so hard, and I know statistics says and shows that the depression rates and anxiety rates are up. So if you have access to help, professional help, do ask for help. I don't think thick-headed way is the way, though. Well, I'm just saying from my own experience. So it's always good to have help. Bianca, do we have anyone who is willing to talk to us?
Sure, we have a question that got most of the votes from Fran de Olza, and I'm going to promote him as a panelist. Fran, prepare to come as a panelist and activate your mic and your camera.
Hello?
Yes. The floor is yours. I'll mute myself.
Okay, thanks, first of all. And well, basically the question would be, how do you maintain loving yourself? Because specifically, I'm struggling with my old programming and having long periods of time where I'm maintaining this new perception of self. So any ideas you could share of how to maintain that on long periods of time?
It's the simplest thing. It's look, it's like the thing where like it's exactly like going to a gym. Like you don't go to a gym for a week or 2 weeks or 3 or a month and then stop for a year. You just don't, right? You may work harder to get to the point you are where you consider yourself fit, but then you can go for maintenance, right? But you still have to go to the gym. If you go to the gym, you get insanely fit. 6% body fat, you're shredded, you're feeling great about yourself. And then for a year, you sit around and eat bonbons and donuts and just ice cream. What do you think is going to happen, right? Same thing, right? The mind is more plastic. The mind is actually easier to change and actually change back too. So it's really simple, just doing the practice, like doing the meditation, doing the mental loop. Before you go, when you wake up, when you fall asleep, you're going to wake up every day anyway. You're going to fall asleep every day. Rather than taking your phone up and checking Instagram, a few minutes to yourself, at night, a few minutes to yourself falling asleep. And it's beautiful because what you're doing is you're doing this purely for yourself. And then just that 7-minute meditation during the day. And, like in the 10 breaths, throughout the day, I may be standing outside looking at the sky and I'll be doing it. It's just like, just keeping it going through the day, and it adds up and it keeps you going. That's the secret. The secret is you got to do the work in anything. If you coast for a while, you're going to slide back in anything. It's really that simple. It's really not hard work, honestly. People think about, I'm like, look, you're going to fall asleep, you're going to go to bed. You're going to have 7 minutes a day. You could watch on Instagram or whatever, or you could actually just say like, look, I'm going to do some meditation purely for myself. And that's the thing, purely for myself, because I'm going to be better because of this. That's it. I hope that helps.
Yes, a lot. Thanks for sharing that insight. Just practice.
Sure. Yeah, it's really simple. There's nothing complicated. You don't have to stand your head or anything. Just, just do it inside.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Fran, for joining us. Bianca, if we have anyone else wanting to join us, I am absolutely open to share the mic. Kamal, meanwhile, while Bianca is maybe communicating or getting the person ready, can you share any of the, what are your practices? What do you do on a regular basis?
Exactly what I write about. I do the meditation, I do the mental loop, I do the 10 breaths,
Can you go a little deeper? What kind of meditation do you do? And
okay, I do the lazy man's meditation, okay? And literally, like, all of this comes from personal laziness because I had to come up with a system for myself that works over time. So the meditation I have is a 7-minute long meditation. That's it. And what I did was I took a piece of music that makes me feel really good. That's it. I have positive associations, so there's nothing negative with it. And it just happens to be 7 minutes long, and it's like flute and piano. So the key is nothing vocal. You just want music, background that makes you feel good. And I listen to that during a meditation. The reason for it being, after a while, my mind starts to anchor itself to the music. So every time I put the music on, my mind goes to that state. And also your mind will drift and this and that. And after a while, you know when it's about to end, your mind goes, oh my God, it's gonna end. I better go back in that state. And the state that I do is very simple, is I feel light come in from above, and just light come in, doing what light does. And in that light, I feel love come in. And then that's with the in breath. With the out breath, I just release whatever needs to go out. That's it. Light in, love for myself, release. In, out to the music ends, meditation's done. It's really simple. The only thing I say is don't listen to music outside of meditation, because you want to keep it pure for that. So that the moment after a week, you'll notice you start listening to it, your mind will go in that place. And it's a beautiful place to go for 7 minutes in your day. And I've found there's something very special about that meditation. And this is, again, I came up with that during that time when I was just literally trying to save myself. I just found I felt so much better after a week of doing it that it's like there's something about it that just adds up, it compounds. You may not even feel it that day or whatever. You're like, what is this guy talking about? He's nuts. But no, do it for at least a week, and you'll notice things inside you shift. We all know our inner selves. We can't hide from our inner selves, right? And that meditation is really just the laziest meditation in the world. 7 minutes, you can listen to a 5-minute song if you have to. So even if you can't meditate, there is no mind. This is really focused to just light and love and release. Someone there posted that, isn't 7 minutes too short? If it is for you, do longer. I'm giving you the lazy guy's version, right?
You know what I say? 7 minutes is way longer than 0, which
Bingo.
Some of us someday go.
I mean, really, go to town, do it all day. You'll be better for it. But I do 7 minutes, right? That's the meditation.
Can I ask you? I really love this idea, and actually, I used to when I used to mention you from stage. I remember actually talking about this technique where you anchor your feeling to music. Where did you get that from? Was that your own experience, or did you learn it from somewhere? Is there any explanation? Because I know that there is the whole science behind music and how we feel listening to it. And I have inadvertently programmed my mind to one music, setting me into work mode. It happened.
Yeah. That's really smart. That's really smart. Yeah, I used to do that with writing. When I've written my books, I've written them to a particular album. No one knows this, but I've written a good chunk of Love Yourself to Enya.
my God, I have such good memories with Enya because my horseback riding trainer switched on that music and gave me the best horse when I one morning came to the training completely out of whack. And now, until now, every time I hear that song, I go like, ooh.
Yeah. Music's great for that. You're absolutely right. I've never told this anyone, but like, so I would listen to the same album in the beginning because the second version, I took a year to write it. And it would just like, after a while, I would sit down, put on Enya, and I would just go right into that state to write this book. Right. And this came more from just natural instinct. At that time, I think I was so tired of being in my head. I put on music to actually like kind of drown out my head a little bit. And I realized that it was working. I know, but I've done a lot of research on it after. And I know in NLP and all these things about anchoring, that word comes from there. But a lot of it just came from instinct, like trying things out on myself. And, that's one thing also I tell people, like, look, in the end, you know what's best for you, but often we don't challenge ourselves enough to do it, which is where the vow comes in. Like if you made a vow to get in a certain amount of shape and you kept your vow, you would have to challenge yourself. You would have to get beyond your comfort zone. Your diet would have to get better beyond your comfort zone. Your workout plan would have to be better than your comfort zone. Same thing with the mind and the heart. And in fact, those are the things that run everything, but those are the things we put off till last. Right. So the music thing, I think, honestly came from, I'm trying to remember, it came from just trying to drown out my head. And I noticed it was just like, it was actually even better. And it's this, and the anchoring thing was actually turned out, I stumbled on, was like a really smart thing I did for myself. So now when I put the music on, my mind just goes there.
Now you've programmed that. Now that when I listen to Enya or hear her accidentally somewhere, I'll remember you. It's anchored now, and I think all of us will do.
I can hear in my head right now, actually. Yeah.
Guys, thank you. Maybe our audience will actually imagine you horseback riding because the two stories emerge.
That's funny.
It was actually on Manhattan when that happened. I used to live in New York, though, another Manhattan. Sorry,
you were horse riding in Manhattan?
Sorry?
You were horse riding in Manhattan?
Yes, in a 5-story building, surprisingly.
Riding a horse in Manhattan, in New York City.
In Manhattan, they have a place that keeps horses for the police. The mountain.
Yeah.
They have an arena on the ground floor, so the horses actually use the ramps to go up and down the.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I've never heard that before. You wouldn't think of that. Someone learning how to ride horses or riding horses in Manhattan.
So guys, thank you for your hearts, by the way. Bianca, I had promised to let someone else ask the question. We are now chatting so comfortably that I don't know if I'm not forced, I might not do that. But Bianca, do we have someone?
Yes, we have Margaret, which got a very good question that got a lot of votes, and it's about trauma.
Right.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My question was about how do people who have had childhood trauma, so say if they grew up in dysfunctional families, etc., which has a tendency to make people become damaged, and it's probably the wrong word, but they have issues around having relationships and sometimes causes them to be codependent and things like that. So how does a person decide or find the space to understand that the work starts first with loving themselves before they can even imagine having a healthy relationship with someone else? And I think the word was wounded, not damaged.
Okay. Look, have you read the expanded version of Love Yourself?
I have not.
Because in there I go into this, and I actually go into this from my experience, and I've written stuff in there that it's a reason why my mom keeps asking me for a copy from her son. She's like, oh, I want to read the book until I get a copy from my son. I won't give it to her because there's stuff about my childhood I shared in there that would break her heart. Like that she couldn't save her child from that. And look, and why do I do it? Why did I do it? There's two reasons. I don't need the world to know what I've been through. Right. It doesn't help me any, but I want people to know they're not alone.
Right.
It's very important to know you're not alone. And second, I want to share how I overcame it using this practice. Okay. And in the end, it all starts from within. If you start with the fundamental thing we're wired for, which is love, and then you turn it to yourself, it makes all the rest easier. it's work. I've had to, like, there's times I go into that child and I talk to him and I give him what he needed, which was love. What?
Right.
And who he needed from? Myself. Like, I can give him the love that no one else can, in a way that no one else can. Right. So I do that sometimes. And I actually even do a step-by-step instructions on how I do it. And you don't need my book. It's really just starting from the core thing. What are we wired for? What are babies wired for? I have 2 nephews. I look at them, they're pure wired for love, and if you give yourself that, the rest gets easier, and you realize, there's a novel I wrote called Rebirth. It takes place in Spain on the Camino de Santiago. And there's a line in there that I wrote, which is one of my favorite things I've ever written, where a French character is telling the American character something. He says it in French. I was very proud of myself. I wrote in French and then he translates to English. I was like, as a writer, I was very proud of myself for doing that moment. I'm just going to pat myself on the back for a second as a writer. And he says, it's not I'm trying to remember my own words. It's not your wound that makes you special. It's the light that shines through that does.
Yes.
So when you realize that, it's our obligation to let the light shine through. It's our obligation to become the phoenix, not to stay in the fire. That's up to us, and we can do that. In fact, this is the best propellant for it, because those of us, anyone who's experienced something hard, first of all, it's like, there's something. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing. Look, there's nothing good about being, childhood trauma.
Right.
But what it is, you can take something from it and become beautiful with it. You can share. You can grow from it in ways that people who haven't, I know people who haven't been challenged fall apart when hard stuff in life happens. I've noticed that. Just like there's this. In some ways, like you have to be stronger and better for it. So I don't even think of the word wounded anymore. Honestly, I just think of where's the light coming from. It's a little mind shift, right? But words matter. The way we look at things matter, and like the images we look at matter. If you start looking at this is where the light comes from, and if it's with the child, you go in and you give the child what the child needed all along, and the best person to do it is yourself. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Go and do it daily. It will change you. Do that meditation I talked about. But in that meditation, imagine yourself for the child and just hold the child and give the child what the child needs. Oh my God, you'll be changed.
So do you recommend that in the meditation, perhaps the adult person can talk to the small person, the young person?
Why not? It's
And
yours.
say,
It's your heart. It's your child. It's you. You know better than anybody else.
Right. What do you need today? What can I give you today?
Whatever you want. Whatever you want. Give the child, give it love.
Right.
The fundamental thing it needed. Love, trust, protection, all of that, what it needed, you give it. Okay, watch how it changes you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Margaret, thank you for your question and for joining.
That was a great question.
Yeah,
thank you.
Very good question. Yes, I'll take the microphone back now to myself. Kamal, as you were talking, I had one more question, and I'll ask the question in a second. Bianca, dear, if we have someone else, because 3 is a much nicer number than 2, so I'll let someone else join and ask one more question, or maybe 2 more questions, however many questions that person will have. Kamal, but I want to ask you this. So you talk so beautifully about loving yourself and giving yourself what you need. A lot of the times when we talk about self-love, people are worried of too much of it. They're worried that, aren't you going to be egocentric, selfish? I've even heard an interesting concept of toxic self-love. Do you have any thoughts on where's that border, if there is a border, or if how to love yourself without the worry that it is too much or it's to the detriment of the people in your life?
It's like people who say, I don't want to work out because I don't want to end up have 6% body fat. You have to do a lot to get to 6% body fat. Why don't you get to 10% body fat first and worry if that's good enough? Like, those are all excuses the mind makes. The mind's a monkey. It'll get in the way of you. I don't know why it's designed this way, or maybe it's the way we grow up is designed to throw the branches in the way of you moving forward. Like, you wish you love yourself so much that there's like But by the way, like narcissism isn't self-love. I've met some narcissists in my life, and I'm a very good reader of people. As a writer, you have to be, right? They are the opposite of self-love. You can see it.
Mm.
It's so damn obvious, right? So the ones then I met people who really do love themselves, and it's a calmness, it's a sense of being, and they come from world to the world from that place. It's beautiful. I've never met anyone I thought this is a person who has self-love that I thought they're a bad person.
Mm.
Toxic self-love, I don't even know what that means. I don't think those words go together. That if it's toxic, it's not self-love, it's something else. Really, how can love be toxic?
I absolutely agree with you. I don't think love can be self-love can be toxic, but it's really cool that you just said that narcissism is the opposite of self-love,
Really?
because
I mean, just look at it publicly. You can, if you look at it with that filter, you'll know immediately. They're too
I
dependent
absolutely
on others.
100% agree with you. Yet, if you look, and I haven't looked at the definition of narcissism, I suspect that it does say something about I don't know, admiration, maybe.
Maybe, but that's not self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it's really not. I think, but the thing is, I'm glad I didn't go read books on this subject when I made that vow. I'm glad I didn't read other people's definition of it. It might
Yeah.
have stopped me. What I can just share is what I've experienced, right? And also, like, honestly, if it was this clear and this obvious how to do it, I, we would all know how to do it. I think the way society defines it is kind of misguided. The way like the traditional media, or whatever, defines as misguided. We think it's like it's narcissism. It's really not. I think it's such a almost like, unfortunately, it's such a foreign concept that we misalign it. And really, for anyone who says to you like, oh, what if it's too much? Why don't you get there? Let me know how it is.
I think next time if somebody tells me that, I'll talk about 6% body fat.
Yeah, exactly. Why don't you get to 10% first? That's all it is. It's funny the excuses the mind makes to get in the way. Because I noticed from my own mind.
But I know it's probably an unfair question because it's probably philosophical. Why do not all people love themselves fully and
That's a great
unconditionally,
question.
if I can say so? Unconditionally, yeah.
Honestly, I'm sure I can give you theories, and I'm sure they're more accurate than not. But here's the thing: in the end, the way I look at it, I am here. I'm a human being. I'm here. I'm at this step. How do I get better? Rather than try to figure out why I got here, let me get better first. Right? If you're wounded, the first thing is, to use the last panelist metaphor, first let the light come out. Rather try to worry about why did I get wounded? Why are we this way? I mean, that I think psychologists are better off explaining. I think a lot of it comes from just the nature of the mind. You go back to old texts, the Buddhists and so forth. They study a lot of the nature of the mind. It's just the nature of the mind in a social construct.
Mm-hmm.
But that same nature of the mind that God is there can also give us freedom, can give us that what we need. It's just that we've never taught that. It's just assumed. Like your mom says, you love yourself. You're whatever. Your grandmother says, love yourself. People say, love yourself. Well, great, thank you. How? Right? That's what's been missing. And it's kind of, I think that's one reason my book does so well.
I do not know. You probably had good environment, but I was born in Soviet Union. We were on the contrary. We were told, don't feel so good about yourself.
Oh yeah, the good old Russian. Yeah. Funny enough, I'm actually learning Russian right now, just to learn a language.
Yeah.
And I was laughing with a friend of mine who was sending me some Russian quotes. I'm like, man, the Russian sense of humor is like people have suffered all their life. These Russians, we were laughing about that.
That's
no,
true.
because look, I had a rough childhood. I don't think it matters. Actually, my book "Love Yourself" just came out in Russia recently, and I get all these wonderful emails from Russian readers. It's a human thing. Even though I think Russians are more stoic, seem more stoic, but when you get to know them, they're like Eastern European people. Russians are the most warm-hearted people I've met. So inside they really are. So I think inside we're all the same human beings. You could be in Estonia, you could be in Zimbabwe. We're still human beings. That's love is love. And I think honestly, it's it's very interesting to see my book doing so well in Russia. I really love it. I'm learning Russian partially because I want to go to Russia and meet my readers.
If you decide, we could we could make a trip together. Maybe we'll.
That'd be
organize
awesome.
something.
I would love it. I would love to do a tour there.
So, so I want to ask Bianca if we have one more question, and I hope we'll have a time for the vow after that.
Yes, we do. We have a great question from Cheryl. Cheryl, please get ready to come live.
Okay, I guess what I'm wondering is if you've never really had an up in life, not that I haven't had good things happen in my life, but for the most part, as far back as I can remember, having depression, anxiety, have a learning disability, I have ADD. So it's really hard to make changes because my mind, it just gets in my way all the time. I want to make changes, yet I'm always tired all the time, or I'm distracted by so many other things, or I try to take on too many things because I want to make changes. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this and this and this. And then I get too overwhelmed. So I can't make changes to make myself better. And then to add on top of that, I'm like not making enough money to like feed myself properly. Like I'm eating too much processed. So that's affecting my mental health and my physical health. But then I can't get forward to get a better job because my mental and physical health isn't there. So it's just a vicious cycle, and I don't know how to break free of that.
Well, look, I'll tell you what works for me, because sometimes you do want to change so much in your life, and it's overwhelming. It's almost like you want everything to change. It's like that's where I think the vow comes in. You pick one thing, just one thing. Okay, but there's a power in that because it becomes a focus, and you will fall off the wagon every day or every hour, and you get back on, and you get back on. That's the secret, right? You make that vow. You do it for 30 days. That's what I've learned. I do these almost these sprints that I do with these vows. Like I'll make myself that vow. You write it down, and you write it down not casually. You write it down in a very, very honest, sincere place to yourself and to whatever you believe is between you and whatever you think God is, or whatever, just it is the vow. Write it down in a journal somewhere with your hand. Feel the power of that. And then keep that where you see it every day. And return to it multiple times a day, and you live it. You do it for a month. And look, by the way, if your mind wanders, strays from doing it, that's normal. For some people it's harder than others, but it's still the nature of the mind is to be a monkey. It just runs around towards bananas. That's what the mind does. So bring it back, focus on it, and you watch the shifts that happen. And also that builds an inner confidence that one can create this change. One can do, I've done this for fitness, I've done this for other things, but you do it for one thing. Make that one thing the most important thing. For me, it was always what I figured out was the inner game. You start with the inner game. So for me, the core inner game was loving yourself. You make that the core thing and do that. And that gives you the confidence, and it shifts things inside of you. And then you can do the next thing and next thing. But if you try to change everything at one point, I don't know anyone who can, by the way. I don't know a single human being who can. I don't think you just can't. We need to focus.
Well, I'm so frustrated because my finances suck so bad that I'm like, I can't eat healthy. Like I'm eating a lot of processed foods just because it's cheaper and it lasts longer. But I'm trying to focus on eating healthier so that I can have a healthier mind and body. I am doing 10X right now, which is great. I'm enjoying that. And I'm trying to get myself to get more sleep. But again, like I get so distracted. I keep telling myself I'm going to get more sleep. And then I stay up late. I just keep falling back into old habits.
Well, here's the thing.
I tell myself.
Something that's really helped me, which is this cushion that I used in the part of the loving yourself practice. And actually, I often forget it because it's become more natural to me. The question I ask myself is, if I love myself, not because, or if, in theory, what would I do? And I keep asking myself that during the day. And you know what? That shifts my choices. Because then I'm no longer doing things unconsciously. Because often most things we just do an autopilot. This kind of like pulls you out and makes you then choose. And you can still choose to do what you were gonna do, but now you're doing consciously. You notice after a while, you'll change your behavior. That really helps. And look, we're all going to, no human being gets out of here without challenges. Everyone's going through something, right? We all have, the scenery is different at times, but the inner thing, we all deal with something. That's just part of the human, the human condition.
There's
And
so much. Yeah, go ahead.
no, please.
No, I was just gonna say there's so many things that I want to do in my life, but then I don't even know where to start, or like I just have too much fear to move ahead, and I feel stuck. And anytime, like just for example, I'll do acting, right? And I go to an audition and I don't get it, and then I just feel like, oh, I never get anything. And then I start going down this downward spiral to the point where I'm like, well, why do I even bother trying? So.
I think.
Sorry,
go ahead, please.
I feel, Cheryl, that you're very, very hard on yourself, and I think that
I am.
We'll come back with a circle to what we started with. Maybe your vow should be about loving yourself.
Yeah.
And I would suggest an analogy of maybe a child or a newborn baby that you will love unconditionally, no matter how much they fail, no matter how much they. Because I think this could make a shift in other things, but just as Kamal said, just focus on one thing for a while, not on everything. Sorry, Kamal, maybe you wanted to.
No, you're absolutely right. I think in the end, if you start with the inner game, you pick that core thing, it spreads out. It's like a ripple effect in your life. Watch, but you have to do it consistently. You have to go all in. You can't half-ass it. You get half-assed with your mind, you get half-ass results. And half-assing doesn't mean being perfect, by the way. It's far. I mean, going all in doesn't mean perfect. It's far from being perfect. It's just doing it. If you fall down, get up. Move forward. Fall down, get up. And before you know it, you're falling down less, and it starts to become a habit. You're training a very unruly monkey in here, and it's training. Really,
I have a barrel of monkeys.
Yeah, you got to train the monkey, and then watch the magic that happens when that monkey works for you.
I mean, I'm getting better. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm way better than where I was at in my 20s, but I'm still frustrated with myself. I'm not further ahead.
It's actually such a good thing that you can say that I'm better in my 40s than in my 20s.
I am.
I mean, progress.
I mean, I have more confidence now than I did back then, but I still struggle. And when things don't go right for me, I just take a downward spiral, and I'm trying to push up.
Guys, I wish I had brought up Cheryl, or I had let Bianca bring up Cheryl a bit earlier, because I feel that this is the conversation which I shouldn't be ending so abruptly, but I'm very mindful of the time. And here on this stage, unfortunately, we have to be finishing up in 2 minutes. So I want to actually use what you just maybe the chance as well. And I had promised, guys, that I want to come back to the vow. I suggest that maybe Cheryl, you dare to make a vow like this. But we can see you actually and hear you. But I also want to invite people who are right now with us. It's over 300 people to share what vow you would want to make yourself. Maybe it's just a draft vow. Maybe you'll perfect it a little later after we're done with it live. But I want you to write in the chat actually what vow you will do, and I'll start by example. I'm going to make a vow. Well, I do love myself, but I guess give myself, yes, that's give myself what I think I'm not getting from the world. Oh, Cheryl has disappeared. I wanted Cheryl to actually share her vow, but
can I make a little suggestion on that one?
Yeah.
Give myself what I want the world to give me.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. I'm going to play with that one. Thank you.
Oh, we have Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
Your voice is switched off.
Sorry, I'm back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I can never decide what to vow to myself. I'm right now trying to make sure I can get to sleep earlier because I want to learn how to lucid dream. So I don't know if I should make that my vow to get myself to bed earlier.
I wouldn't, because that's an outer thing. That's a habit thing. I'm talking about, I think the best ones, just my suggestion, the one that changes all, the ripple effect, go for the inner. Something core. That's where love comes in, that kind of stuff.
I vow to love myself.
Yes.
Awesome. Please do.
Amazing.
Keep that vow. Keep that vow. If you make it, you got to keep it. That's the deal with that's how vows work. It's like a marriage vow. You don't just make it that day and you kind of wander off the next day. It's like at least do 30 days in the marriage with yourself.
Okay, well, if I ever meet you in person one day, I'll tell you that I love myself.
I would
you
love
guys,
that.
by the way, you guys can actually do a public vow somewhere on your Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and tag Kamal. Kamal, you haven't. Sorry, I got you into trouble.
That's fine. That's fine. I'd be
But,
honored. I'd be honored.
We have to finish, so I have to thank you all, guys. Thank you all who were with us throughout this 1 hour, and we are a little bit over 1 hour. I hope Bianca is not going to to be angry with me. Thank you, Kamal, for finding time and for being for sharing your love with us, because your love for yourself, I do not know what you're doing, but it spills over. So thank you for that. Thank you for to the 3 people who actually shared the stage with me. And traditionally, guys, you know me, I want you to leave a heart for Kamal in the comments, in the chat. We've had a lot of hearts this time, and I love it.
This is beautiful. I'm watching them go by. This is absolutely beautiful. I'm just grinning from the inside out.
Yes.
What a pleasure. This is such a, look, I'll come back every day for this. I'll come literally anytime you want, I'm here. Seriously.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And yes, do your vows, make them publicly, and do tag Kamal. So yes, that's all actually. And thank you, Kamal, once again. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Yeah. Actually, Instagram is better for me than Facebook. If people want
Instagram, of course, Instagram.
Yeah. I never check Facebook anymore. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.